Hello everybody, my name is Xander. Today we are taking a look at this brand new Blackpink album. The album. Let's go. K-pop is massive, there's no denying that at this point. I feel like a lot of the music community is pretty willing to ignore it, despite not having anything averse to foreign music. On account of the fact that, while on a surface level it is pretty understandable, it's basically just a reflection of 2012 era Western pop. It's so massive and popular and expansive that it's kind of hard to even conceive of. Like, this is a world of zero artist control where people are put into training for years just to be part of organizations that can put them in bands. Their music videos are massive and contain everything from classical to modern hip-hop to pop to everything in between. And so I feel like a lot of music nerds just aren't really able to comprehend it. The closest I really came to liking it with something like baby metal, and while I can understand why bands like BTS or Big Bang are popular, they just weren't for me. However, this started to change when I discovered Blackpink. For me, they were the first K-pop band to actually have some grit behind them. Their smaller member count than most K-pop bands was also pretty helpful, as instead of trying to keep track of like 15 different people, all of whom are singing at once, there are only 4 personalities there. 2 of which are rappers, and 2 of which are singers. It's a pretty simple setup that led to some amazingly structured music. The first track I came across was one called Kill This Love. It was using that one horn synth sound that we've heard a million times, but it made it sound a lot more grand and epic than most producers are able to do. And the way that they weaved all the girls into the song, having rap section followed by soft singing section, basically no transitions, allowing the song to just go ahead, until we hit this massive chorus with the catchy one-liners. In contrast to a lot of K-pop, instead of being so big that it starts to bloat and the balloon just bursts, it was contained enough with its members and its structure to be passable with my ears, but still grand and stupid enough to appeal to its audience. And I feel like the key word in all of that, including with this album, is tight. This album feels less like a movie with scenes going forwards, and more like an amusement park ride, each room you're going into having a different section. Unapologetically switching from electronic to hip-hop to soft guitars to rock guitars, and especially with the short 25-minute runtime, it feels like not a second was wasted here. But none of this would matter if the girls themselves weren't fantastically talented, which they are. Their 2 singers are called Jennie and Rose, and they're given plenty of opportunities to get their sweet and sickly voices across the mix, with the rapping and hip-hop side of things being covered by Jisoo and my bias, Lisa. However, there were actually also a couple features, one of which was from Cardi B. And while I've never really been a fan of Cardi, she certainly does put in the effort on this track. Or had it ghostwritten for her, I'm not entirely sure. But at the end of the day, with the blandness of the rapping and the non-committal of the lyrics, being talented at singing can only get you so far. What makes this album stand out in my mind is the production. It's got tons of hip-hop inspired swag to it. Yes, there are some acoustic instruments in there, but there's a lot of samples with switching. It simultaneously manages the beauty of the singing and the grit of the electronic and hip-hop inspired elements, the black and the pink, if you will. And the sheer grime of it is helped along by the vocal performances, like in the Lewis Cole style, I bet you wanna. But I do have a few issues with it, and I don't know how to say this, but I think there's a little bit too much swag to the beats. This is insanely subjective and really particular, and also quite difficult to discuss because we're talking about the minute nuances of synthesizers, but given that these hooks do repeat and so you end up hearing them up to 40 times by the end of the track, I do think that these tiny things do add up over time. In my opinion, there's just a little bit too much expression going on here. They go through the uncanny valley of having some funk and groove there, but just overdoing it to the point where every sample sounds like it's trying too hard. But it's not even like a 100 gex taking autotune way too far to the point where it becomes parody. It's in this middle ground where it's going for really extreme styles, but not so much that I can appreciate it in this kind of post-irony way. The best analogy I could think of is if you ever hear a trumpet player who's pretty new to jazz, they try and over-articulate every single note. Wow, 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 wow. And that's the issue I had with the beats. There's a little too much side-chaining and undulation with them that makes me think less of funk and more of just an amorphous blob of music, endlessly reverberating around before being completely overly polished by 10 producers. And with that said, I do kind of have to discuss the sheer level of gentrification going on here. You got a bunch of Asian pop stars owned by Korean producers selling to mainstream American audiences based on a black American tradition that is now being reviewed by a British music reviewer. We're on like irony level 10. And then hearing them do these completely cartoony do gun sounds, these people that have probably never even seen a firearm in their life, along with lyrics like, yeah, I made it, pretending they're like indie artists. And then the final track that talks about the K-pop life as if it's like, yeah, stardom's great, but it also hurts. likely influenced by contemporary sad rappers like Post Malone. The difference, though, is that Post Malone has struggled with drugs in the past and is actually living the life of a hip-hop star. I'm not saying K-pop stars don't have a very hard life, but knowing that all of these tracks were ghostwritten and approved by the organization that owns them, refusing to actually talk about the faults of the industry and instead going for this vague, it's harder than you think thing, going for sympathy written by people who aren't the singers. Like, it just feels a little too impersonal, which you can say for all K-pop, but only at this point is starting to really get on my nerves. But if you're a K-pop fan, I don't think these are going to be an issue for you. If you listen to any K-pop, I can definitely recommend Blackpink. They're up there with one of the best bands in the genre, in my opinion. But even if you're just a normal music nerd that isn't really aware of this genre, I can still basically recommend this album. It's a good in for the genre, and it's pretty fun to listen to throughout. It's flawed, sure, but certain tracks like Lovesick Girls and Bet You Wanna are real earworms that I enjoy listening to a ton. And honestly, I think any music listener can get at least something out of this album, even if it isn't something that we're going to be listening to for years to come. And so overall, I did enjoy it quite a lot, and so I'm giving this a light 7- out of 10. Also, Lisa is objectively the best bias. If you disagree, you're just wrong. Criticizing the entire industry won't get me cancelled, but I guarantee you that sentence alone is going to start a flame war in the comments like you've never seen before. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would very much appreciate it if you left a like on it. It helps me out a ton, and subscribe if you're new here. We're experimenting on the channel a little bit here. We did an unpopular 9 Inch Nails opinions video you can watch here. I enjoyed making a lot, and I think you guys will enjoy watching it. Twitter, Discord, whatever else in the description. And I'll see you guys in the next one.